Good morning and welcome back to Valley News Now. I am Adam Shalfu and I'm joined by Ben Dow. Ben, great to see you in studio and appreciate the work that you guys have done. We're going to start right there. You are the Director of Public Works for Fargo. You guys just got your first little taste of snow. Tell us about your position with the city and what you do for all of us.
So I've been with the city for about 27 years. I've been the director for 14 now, and really oversee our street department, our mains and hydrants department, our forestry department, and our entire city fleet. And so that entails everything you see pretty much as you're driving around out there in the public. That's what we're maintaining or repairing or dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
And I know I've been over there a few times and just kind of seen some of the work that you guys do. And in a place like Fargo, it's no joke.
Yeah,
you know,
Fargo's the real deal. We have one extreme to the other.
Yeah, I'll talk to some of my family in Texas, and they're like, "Oh, it snowed." Oh, did it? You know?
Yeah, it's the only place where you can get snow and a lot of wind. I mean, the only place you're going to see conditions worse is probably up in Alaska.
Fair enough, fair enough. So we're going to kind of talk about what goes in the preparation, safety advice, stuff like that, how you guys are staying ahead of the game with that. So kind of just starting right with it, describe the approach when you are getting ready for, I know it was more of a snow event, not necessarily a storm, but going into those snow events, snowstorms, etc.
So there's a lot of things that have to go into place. You know, we start watching events that are coming in typically about 5 days out. We do have a consultant forecasting group that typically warns us of something they're seeing out there that could potentially come in. And so we really start putting our plans into action. We look at what our staffing needs are going to be, what's the condition of our equipment, and just down to even how much fuel do we have on hand to make sure that we have enough to cover everything we need during an event. As we continue to prepare, we watch, okay, are we going to see freezing rain first, or are we going to see a lot of wind, or how much our snow are we going to deal with? So freezing rain limits our what we can do with our ice control products. Wind also limits it. So there's just a huge amount of factors that we have to calculate into our plan and make some decisions as we move forward.
And you mentioned that just kind of the preparation piece there, and there's a lot of like pre-treating involved. Looking at this forecast, can you go into a little bit more detail about how you guys take that information of the forecast and what kind of expect, and how that helps you formulate the best possible game plan?
The products we use out there for ice controls really depend on, okay, first we got to factor in temperature. When we talk temperature, we talk our pavement temperature. Air temperature can be one thing, but pavement temperature really can be 10, 20 degrees difference based on sunshine or anything like that. So we start looking at, okay, for any liquid pre-treatment applications to the road to help with that, that freezing to the pavement and that ice that we see, we can do a pre-treatment, but we can't see rain first, because it'll just dilute it and wash it away. We can't see a lot of wind because it'll attract snow, start the melting process, and create ice. So you kind of have to have the perfect event for that. You're also looking at how cold are our temperatures. Do we need to add additives to that product to make sure that it stays in the right condition it does, so it doesn't create ice? So we're looking at that. Then we're also watching temperature for what kind of granular product are we going to use. Anything above 20 degrees, we can stay really good with our salt products, because it is very, very effective. And if we have any sunshine, it really works well. And as you can see in our arterials today, it's starting to melt off and everything's turning back to some normal driving conditions. We do have a product blend that we use, that we have an additive product that's called Ice Slicer that we blend with our salt pre-season. That's for our 0 to 20 degrees. And then when we get below 0, there really isn't a product that works well that just is going to put out there. So then we switch to our sand salt for more traction control only. So there's a lot of variables. We're watching the weather, timing, everything like that, so that we can make sure we're using the right products, we're not worsening conditions, and we're getting the job done.
And kind of outside looking in, sometimes I'll be on my way home, what have you, and it seems like there's almost like patterns as far as who's kind of covering what. This guy's handling this area. And you mentioned the fleet. And so how do you guys kind of coordinate that when you're expecting that large snowstorm to come in? You kind of need all hands on deck.
So we reorganize our whole group when it comes to an event, even like we just went through, because the majority of our crews are staff members are on days. And
Okay.
we got to run a 24-hour operation.
Sure.
We can't run for 16, 18 shutdown and then send our crews home for sleep and then come back. So we have to delegate our staff to, okay, you're going to be on nights this month. We're going to shift you over. We're going to send you home at 3 o'clock. You return to work at 11 o'clock, and then you're going to work all night, and then you're going to return on nights the rest of the week. So, and we try and work with our families. Everybody has family things going on, birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, whatever it is. So we try and give them as much notice as possible, because we're going to turn them around and move them to that night shift, and they're going to do what's called a double up. And so that's that 5-day window, and so we want them as well rested as possible. So a lot of times we'll do that the day before the event even comes in, so that they're rested, they're at maximum capacity, and we're ready to go. So the staffing is the big part of it. We're also looking at who's going to be working in which zone, who's familiar which zone, who's going to be our lead plows, who's going to be doing everything, and we're making those assignments up to 2 days, 3 days before the event even happens.
And does the severity of the event have a pretty big impact on, I guess, the hours someone can expect to work, I imagine, and just kind of things like that?
You know, our teams run in 12-hour shifts, so that's the way we're able to run around the clock. So we have 56 operators in our street department, and so when we switch, we roll 28 of them to nights, and we run 28 during the daytime, and so we run even crews. Then we pull in our staffing from our forestry division, and they run our sanders and our spreaders out there for us during an event. And then we pull in our mains and hydrants team, and they run and plow our alleys and stuff like that and do the extras. So we're pulling from the whole team, the whole umbrella of Public Works. It's not just the street department you see out there. We're coordinating with the entire group of staff to make this happen.
Tell me about like your order of operations, what you guys want to clear first, and why that's important.
You know, there's a process to this, and that really comes into our emergency response. We got to make sure our ambulances, our fire trucks, our police cars can get where they need to go quickly on those main drags. So we start with our priority one, our main streets, our 45th streets, our main avenues, our universities. Those are our priorities to maintain through an entire event. You know, we're going to lose. We're not going to beat Mother Nature. We're going to lose at some point, and we're just going to, you know, triage and keep moving. And so you'll see us run those a couple times before we head into the neighborhoods. We also have priority twos, which are our collector routes that run through the majority of the neighborhoods. There's one street that, you know, kind of leads to that main road, and then it leads out to our arterial main roads. And so those are our secondaries. We use those as a priority two. Sometimes we'll do that. This event didn't have enough snow to really put that into effect. So once we got our priority ones done, we jumped right to our priority threes and plowed it all together and moved into our residential neighborhoods. You know, our priority ones, it's hard to believe, but it takes us 6 to 8 hours to cover all that ground in the city with the equipment we do have, just that. And so then when we switch to our priority twos, generally that's about 4 hours. Priority threes is a 12-hour run to get through all the residential neighborhoods. Alleys are a priority 4, but like I said, we do shift our mains and hydrants department into our alleys and our alley cleaning. So if the event is a normal event like yesterday, we can put them into the alleys right away and plow them at the same time. Now, if we see something that's 6 inches plus with a lot of wind, we're probably going to have them delegated to opening stuff up, opening neighborhoods up, and trying to keep that traffic moving so that we can get our emergency responders where they need to go.
And I know just from talking to you and members of your team that 24 hours is usually the goal to get everything completely cleared. But it's like I always tell people, it's the wind. You know, it's the wind that makes the driving difficult sometimes, especially on the drive up to Grand Forks. I know that's not your jurisdiction, but I've had where it's not snowing, but it certainly feels like it, you know, because it's blowing 40 miles an hour and it's all over. It makes visibility difficult. It makes the roads, I imagine, much harder to maintain once you do kind of hit that initial cleaning, if you will. And so what do you guys do to kind of handle that? What do you guys do to mitigate the impacts you can have of those heavy snows and the high winds?
You know, that's where that 24 hours is really once things start settling down. The 24
Okay.
hours is not from the time the snow starts, because we're going to triage. We're going to keep those arterials. We might have to run them 2-3 times to keep up with the wind. You know, Fargo is one of the only places in the country where you can have no snowfall, but just wind and have a blizzard. And so with that, we are just continually focusing on those. Then once that settles down, we really can get into those neighborhoods and run that 24-hour routine and get through it. We sometimes get done a lot quicker than that. Our goal is always to beat that. We should not be past that 24 hours, but we might have events that last 2 days where the wind doesn't calm down for
Right.
2 days, 3 days even. We've had 3-day blizzards. And so then that's when there's a little frustration with our citizens is you haven't been to my house yet, you haven't been by. But it's really about those priority ones, keeping that area open so our fire trucks can get through. Now, if there's a fire and they dispatch to us right away when there's a fire, you know, if there's snow on the way, we lead the charge. We come in, we pull our gear, and we make sure they can get there. But again, 24-hour window is from the snow time stopping, not totally stopping, but the wind and everything kind of settling down.
Okay, very good. And then the snow hauling, you know, because you get it off the ground, but it's still there. So what happens? Where do you guys take it? How's that all work out?
Well, you know, we have a downtown with very little snow storage. And that's kind of one of our key elements is we have to prepare for the next event. We have to make sure we're making that snow storage. So when the next storm rolls in 5 days later, we have some place to put it. So as soon as we get our residentials wrapped up, we shift over to our hauling responsibilities. We bring our contractors in with our contractor dump trucks at that time. And we use our staff and our blowers, our graders, our loaders, and we go to town and do the core of our downtown. We typically can, if it's a 6-inch snowfall or less, we can get that done in 2 nights, the core of downtown.
Okay.
And so we can, and everybody's heard of Mount Fargo. If you've been
Yeah, I
around
was
here
just
up
gonna
on
bring it up.
12th
Yeah,
Avenue,
yeah.
that's our main storage site. You know, you'll see us pushing snow up there with groomers, which is the most efficient way to do it that we've discovered rather than dozers. And we'll start hauling there. We bring in, you know, we can haul up to almost 400 truckloads a night. That's
Wow.
how efficient we are.
Okay.
When everybody's sleeping, we're flying. And then when the downtown's done, then we start looking at where, okay, we've lost this turning lane here because our trucks just physically cannot push that snow back anymore. The snow will actually win once the windrow gets so big and push the trucks sideways and pushes back. So then, okay, now it's time to get out there to that 45th Street is a very common one, 13th Avenue, when we'll lose half a lane or we'll lose a turn lane. So then we focus on hauling those. It's all in preparation for that next snow event. We have to create some additional storage. And so that's why Fargo, with its 4 lanes, 5-lane wide roads, there's just not enough storage on the 10-foot boulevards to accommodate the amount of snow and blowing and drifts we do get.
And we're going to talk about some of the sidewalks and stuff, but one more thing I want to touch on is the ticketing. You know, you got to move your car. You got to move your car. If people, and there's clearly marked signs. I don't want anyone to feel foolish here, but you got to read the signs. You got to read the signs, and they're very clear. But I feel like maybe it's helpful for the people to just hear logistically, why are the signs there? How important is that for you guys to really keep the city as a whole maintaining a smooth flow of transportation and travel?
Well, you know, the downtown is the biggest thing. They're year-round there, the night restrictions. That's not only for sweeping, but it's for snow hauling. And when we go down there to haul snow, we're bringing a lot of equipment, a lot of iron. So when we do haul it downtown, we do put it out that we're going to impound vehicles. And anything that's parked illegally at that moment is going to get impounded. We're there to get it done as fast as possible, efficient as possible, and move on to the next mission. And so that's within our downtown. Now, when you move into a lot of the residential areas and the core neighborhoods, the streets are narrower than a lot of the new neighborhoods that were put in the last 20 years. So in those areas, we have to have a lot of one side parking only and night restrictions so that you know, we can get through. Everybody sees it throughout the winter that our streets get narrower. And a lot of that is related to cars. Because if a car's parked there, our plow has to swing out, go around it, and then go back in. The car parks again there, it's a little farther out, a little farther out. So by eliminating parking on some of those narrow streets, we can do a better job clearing, get that one side at least all the way over. Then the night restriction allows us, if it gets to a point where it's a hazard, we can get in there and haul it at night. We can go out and widen if we need to. So that it's very important that the cars are removed from the street as much as possible when these events happen. It also affects our clearing time. If a plow truck driver or a motor grader driver can go down the street at 15 miles an hour and not have to slow down for a car, that's very efficient.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a car in the way, they typically have to slow down to 5 miles an hour, swing out, swing back in, get reset, and start going again. So you're losing 10 miles an hour and if you have 5, 8 cars per block, think about the operational impacts as a whole in 24 hours for every car. So that's why if our citizens can work with us, remove those cars until we get plowed, it can really make us a lot more efficient.
Now getting into a little bit of the sidewalk stuff, and that's underrated importance, especially there's some days I don't even want to get in the car. If I got the little corner store there and I just want to grab a cup of coffee or something, what have you, in the morning, or it's the extreme, just stay off the roads in general kind of days, which we do get sometimes here. The sidewalk, super important, especially on those times. So once you guys have taken care of the roads, what's the approach as you guys look to tackle the sidewalks?
So Fargo and Park District were two different things. Fargo has about 41 miles of sidewalks. We maintain it ourselves, where it's city properties, storm catch bays, big storm features, everything like that. So we maintain about 41 miles. Park District actually maintains more than that. So,
oh, wow, okay.
The city as a whole, like I said, when you look at the umbrella of Park District and city, we do maintain a lot of our own sidewalks, but the residents are responsible for their adjacent sidewalks. And it's very, very important because our community has changed over the last 10, 15 years. It's a very active community, and people like to be outdoors even when the weather isn't perfect in the winter time. And so to get out there in that first 24 hours and clean that sidewalk can not only make it safe for your letter carrier,
sure,
for your college students, for even your kids walking to the bus to get for school. So it's important to get out there and make safe paths for that foot traffic out there. Now there's some times that our ordinance says 9 o'clock. We kind of roll on 24 hours because that 9 o'clock is really tough to determine, because if it stops snowing at 6 o'clock at night, we're not going to expect you to have it cleaned by 9 o'clock that night. So it's a 24-hour window you have to get that done and make sure that your sidewalks are clean.
Now, what happens if you don't?
Well, that's not the fun side of things.
Yeah.
So we do have a municipal code that is an ordinance that says you have to clean your sidewalks. And with that comes some penalties. So if you choose not to, and again, our system is 100% driven by the public. We don't have a code enforcement person out there driving around finding sidewalks. It's complaint driven. If say the letter carrier contacts the city of Fargo and says, hey, this sidewalk hasn't been, that's how that gets enforced. We are not out there progressively looking.
The sidewalk police, not a thing.
No, we don't have sidewalk police. So once we do get a complaint, then we do have our people that do our 41 miles, they turn into enforcers as far as enforcing the code at that point. So they go out and then we capture it all in our work order system. We document it, we leave a hanger on the door saying, hey, you're not compliant, you got 24 hours to clean your sidewalk. We photograph the preconditions, what we're seeing, what we're out there. So we don't have one of our employees, saying, oh, this is really bad when it's not. So we have photographs to prove that it wasn't.
Okay.
You got 24 hours. So after the 24 hours, our enforcement group goes back, captures pictures again. If you get out there and do it, you're perfect, you're done. We move on our merry way. Now, if you choose not to comply, that's when we have a handful of contractors that we've done RFPs for, requests for proposals for services, that we hire that contractor to come in and clean it. If it's like after the first snow event, the bill can be fairly reasonable. It might be $75, $100. If you choose not to do your sidewalk and it gets picked up in February, the bill could be $200-300 because we pass that bill right on to the property owner.
Okay, so it gets worse if you don't.
Yep, because it depends on how much effort that contractor has to put into it.
Sure.
If there's 12 storms build up on there, you can imagine there's going to be a lot of scraping, a lot of ice control products, a lot of costs. So the way to do it is to get out there from storm one and stay on top of it and move forward so everybody can use them in a safe manner.
Let's talk about the proper disposal of snow. You can't just be, if you're doing the sidewalk, you can just take it and whip it on the road.
We really shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
That really can create some hazard conditions. Plus, there's rules against that.
Right.
Really, the only snow that's supposed to go on your boulevard by ordinance is your sidewalk snow and your adjacent driveway snow on your apron to your driveway. Everything else should stay on your private property. Now, everybody's driven around and seen that one person blowing it all out in the street after we've come by and plowed.
Yeah.
And that can really cause some negative issues for the residents because that snow just becomes compacted. It becomes icy.
Yeah,
it just can really and in the spring there can be ruts in it. It just can cause a real bad scenario. So we really want everybody to keep their snow up off their driveway, either on the boulevard or in their private property. The boulevard is typically used for all the snow that we clean off the streets. Now there is penalties that come with it. Most homeowners are really good about this. Again, we see that one person blowing out there, but we have some challenges with some contractors. If the contractor likes to push the driveway across the snow on the other side of the driveway up on the boulevard, that's not allowed. And so with that can come with some penalties. And we work with one of our law enforcement people to enforce that. And we can get it on a complaint driven, we can notice it. That law enforcement person will try and figure out who the contractor is, work with the contractor to try and haul it away. Now if they choose not to do anything about it, the fine could start $150, go up from there, plus the fees for the city to come haul it away. So, make sure you're putting it where it belongs. Keep it out of the street. We come by, plow by. We have it as clean as we possibly can get it. We want to maintain it that way for safe driving conditions.
Well, it's a team effort. Speaking of team effort, I love this, the snow removal assistance program. Not everybody might know about this.
There is some people that, it might be an elderly person that wants to maintain and stay in their home for a continued amount of time, or, just financially. It's expensive,
right?
Especially if you have to hire a contractor. So our planning department does have an assistance program. There is an application process, and of course there's financial controls on there on what you can make for income. But you can either contact our planning department and ask about it, or you can just reach out to our public works department, 241-1463. We can get you in touch with who you need to talk to, and we can get that application in process. Okay,
very good. So talking about snow emergencies now, some of those parking ordinances, what is a snow emergency declaration?
So we do have an emergency declaration, and you see that amongst a lot of cities amongst Minnesota where it says, okay, we got 2 inches, 3 inches of snow or more, every car off the street. You got to get them off the street or they're going to get impounded or fined. And so we do have that. We have had it in place about 5 years now. I can say to date we have not issued one because it is an extremely difficult thing to time.
Okay.
It is very, very impactful to our residents, or our college students. And so, ours reads it has to be 4+ inches of snow forecasted. And so you put a lot of faith in that forecaster. And so we need about 4 days of preparation with a solid forecast to put it in place. It's not like we can issue it once a storm starts, because our law enforcement is staffed per shift to handle the calls and the volume they're receiving. And this is an added duty that they have to go out and start ticketing vehicles at $100 a vehicle if you're parked on the street. So it's
not messing around.
Not messing around, but there's a staffing. And my philosophy is, if you can't enforce it and you can't get it done, don't impact the citizens in that way, because there'll be a lot of frustration. Oh, you called this, snow emergency, but nothing was done about it to enforce the people that were in violation. So it's really a combination of working with law enforcement so they can bring in extra officers on overtime, staff up, so that we can do this. So if we have the perfect storm, as we'll put it, where we know we're going to get just a blizzard of the century, we will put this in place. But it is not something we can just do at the drop of a hat.
Okay, all very good to know. And then finally, that's safe driving. Everyone always says the first snow of the year, everyone forgets how to drive in it. I was talking to a coworker who I forgot to shout out because of her efficiency in our NFL predictions. So shout out Gracie. Also talking about some safe driving, safe driver and football expert. So
Right.
Gracie, if you're watching this. But all jokes aside, we were talking about, because she was behind me yesterday, and I said, I respect how slow you're going. And she said, I respect how slow you're going. Because it was that first one of the year. The roads were pretty good, but it's still, there is still some of that residual ice, some of that stuff we're dealing with. And when I hit that first snow, I'm always better safe than sorry. I try to be a proactive driver, defensive driver, but especially when you're going into something like that. Let's talk about some of those tips and how important they really are, not just for the driver, but everybody else on the road.
You know, we have a lot of things that are impacting our driving today. Cell phones, distracted driving, you know, new drivers, people that have never seen a winter.
Yeah.
And so, you know, setting a good example for not only your new drivers, but just that person following you. And it's important that you give everybody a little more room. You slow down. We're all going 90 miles an hour, not technically in speed, but just in our lives. They're very busy, and we're always running a little late. And, you know, what is that accident worth to you? And so you gotta take that in there. So we really encourage people to double those following distances. Don't count on running that yellow light either. You know,
Yeah.
as you're approaching that yellow light, maybe you should be prepared to stop. Don't count on running it, because you know that's a bad one, and that's when bad accidents happen. We also want to make sure that, you know, people. The other thing is people are dressed for the environment. If something does happen, a lot of times in these events, if there is an accident and people don't slow down, we see that someone isn't even wearing a coat.
Billy's wearing his flip-flops, thinking he's making a target run, a 4-minute drive. Next thing you know, he's got hypothermia.
Exactly. So, you know, preparedness is the key. Make sure you have good tires. That's a great thing. Make sure you're not just anticipating that you are going to be able to stop. The other thing is give our equipment some room.
Okay.
You know, our equipment is big.
Yeah.
And sanders are big, and they need some room to operate. So if the traveling public can stay back, you know, at least that 50 feet and give us the room we need and not get frustrated and just work with us that, you know, that driver's not trying to upset you. They're trying to do their job. That is critical importance. So we stress putting those devices away, making sure that device is put away. We don't have a cell phone. We're not trying to text. Or even that phone call can distract you.
Yeah.
So when these events, such as yesterday, it was icy yesterday, slow down, put the device away, and just prepared for the unknown.
Yeah. Some excellent tips there. And finally, there's the Cast Clay alerts. That's just a really good way to stay informed, and a great way for you guys to provide the most up-to-date information for people about just about everything we talked about today.
We really encourage people to go up and sign up for that. We have two variations of Cast Clay alerts. We have the emergency response, that's 100% for emergencies that are out there for, you know, the bad things. And then we have a non-emergency response you can register for on Cast Clay alerts. And we send stuff out on that. So in association with our downtown hauling activities, we send alerts out to the people that are registered in that area. And it's the same thing with parking restrictions. We do the same thing. So we're sending information out through various methods, but if you don't go out on Cast Clay alerts and sign up, you're not going to receive it. So we encourage you to go out there. We don't abuse it. We don't want people's cell phones going off just because. We want to use it for the right tools. So we really focus on information that needs to be pushed out. So again, 100% if you can go out there to Cast and register for Cast Clay alerts, sign up for both the emergency, non-emergency, it'll be really helpful for us and for you.
Very good. And I feel like my big takeaway, if there's one thesis from our conversation today, is yes, it is your guys' responsibility to maintain these clear roads and everything that comes along with that. But it's also one of those things where the whole city needs to cooperate to make sure that you guys are able to do that at the most efficient way possible.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate our residents. You know, doing things like this and sitting down and going through this is very informative for a lot of people, and a lot of people listen. And we appreciate the cooperation that we get with almost all our residents, and people really do get patient. Usually we see a little bit of a blip when we're on storm 15 and it's February, but overall our residents are really good, and it's teamwork. Just be patient. We're coming. We have all our resources running that we have available. We're not, I've been accused of not having anything out there. I'm like, we have everything out there. We're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at it, and we're doing everything we can. So we're always 100% dedicated to our citizens of Fargo, and we appreciate anything they contribute to us. We've also, I got to say it, I got to thank my team, the Public Works team. Those are our staff that come to the table, whether it's Christmas, New Year's, holidays, sick, birthdays. They're sacrificing all that, and they care. You wouldn't believe how much these people that work for the City of Fargo and Public Works care, and they own that responsibility to our citizens. So I have to shout out to our group and say thank you.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, and hope everybody gets home where they need to go in a safe manner.
Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Valley News Now. We will see you next time.